Come fall in love as Madison Opera presents Puccini's La Bohème, a celebrated opera about the lives, loves, and losses of young artists in Bohemian Paris. Whether you are new to opera or a longtime fan, don't miss this moving work that audiences have adored for over a century, brought to life by a dynamic young cast. That's November 7th and 9th at Overture Hall. Tickets at madisonopera.org. Back by popular demand, It's a Wonderful Life, a new musical, returns to the Orpheum for one unforgettable performance. This special stage concert experience brings the heartwarming story of George Bailey to life with a lush original score and a timeless message of hope. With book and lyrics by John Atkins and music by Capital City Theater artistic director Andrew Abrams, this is a must-see musical event. Catch the show at the historic Orpheum Theater on November 16th at 2 p.m. Get your tickets today at capitalcitytheater.org. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, it's the Friday News Roundup, and we're going to talk about our area weathering some storms in our schools and impacts from choices from the federal government on local life. Joining me to talk about all of this is our executive producer, Haley Sperling. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca.
And yeah, no frills.
No frills today.
We got some pretty sad stories, but a little light in that we're seeing each other. And our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Bianca.
So, Haley, no frills, you're kicking us off this week with a tough story with some local school drama. What's going on?
Yeah, another hard story this week. The Madison Metropolitan School District, the state's Office of School Safety, and the Madison Police Department are investigating allegations of sexual assault against two male staff members at Annie Green Crow White Horse Middle School. These two staffers are now on leave, according to Cap Times reporting. And there's been a lot of chatter on social media lately surrounding this story. An initial post on Facebook shared by a relative of the victim made some of these accusations online. And I'm not going to get too deep into what exactly that post said, because police are saying that some of the details in that post were, quote, inaccurate and potentially harmful. Though with that in mind, they haven't said exactly what is inaccurate, so take that with a grain of salt. Of course, they're citing the fact that it's an open investigation, the fact that they won't comment any further. But let's get into this story a little bit more. Earlier this week, the mother of the victim spoke at the Madison School Board meeting. This is the first time that she's spoken publicly since this news came out about the matter. And she basically came forward to advocate for her child who has autism. She said she wants to ensure the safety of her child and other children with disabilities at school, saying that she will always be an advocate for her son. And this whole situation has the community pretty riled up, especially coming on the heels of the major Cap Times investigation that we actually talked about on last week's Friday News Roundup about the Department of Public Instruction failing to keep up with and to disclose investigations into teacher and school staff misconduct. So that's the context for this story, AKA, things are heavy. People are having a lot of feelings. And again, according to the Cap Times, community members gathered in support of the student and his family, both online and at the school this past week. On Monday morning, they reported that people peacefully demonstrated outside of White Horse with signs that said, quote, "What if it was your child?" and, quote, "Protect the innocent, save the children." So pretty heavy stuff, pretty big reactions. I know we've been talking about this story internally as a team, discussing how do you report on things that have come across online. Obviously, the school district has put out multiple statements about this. MPD is investigating, but I'm curious, how is this story hitting you guys? Have you seen it in your social media feeds? What are you getting away from it?
Yeah, I know we've been talking about it and we're staying up on the news as always. I think it's very alarming for a number of reasons. And the first one being just, thinking about how vulnerable kids and students are, particularly students who might have different processing skills, like around, autism, like social cues and things like that may make them particularly vulnerable to predation. The second thing that's really sticking with me is how quickly the misinformation was spread. And you might be getting to this, but that there was something online about like someone posted someone's address and people were showing up at that address very upset. The police department said, these people are not involved, so please check your facts. So it's bringing up a lot. And like, I know that we've been like, how should we cover this in a responsible way and not spread further misinformation, but also recognize that something really bad is possible to have happened here, and taking allegations seriously and writing that line.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think what I've read, local media has done a really good job of walking that line about differentiating between what's known and what has not been released. And as a person, as a parent, as anybody, your heart goes out to people, even when you're not sure what's happening, but you can't take that empathy and jump to conclusions and certainly show up at people's houses or spread misinformation. So it's a line everybody walks, I think, in a situation like that, where you want to show up, but at the same time, you want to, wait for the facts to come in.
Yeah. And I think the hard thing with this story, too, is that at the end of the day, I have to believe we're all on the same side, right? No one wants any of these horrible things. No one wants anything bad in general to be happening to kids at school. And so what's really bubbling up is these issues of trust, or broken trust rather, between the district and parents and the district and students. And so, that's something that repeatedly came up at the school board meeting, calling for more trust, calling for more background checks. Again, at the school board meeting, a youth leader in the community came up and spoke to school board members about multiple instances of violence that have happened at Whitehorse and beyond. She talked about inappropriate actions taking place at Whitehorse and other MMSD schools, and really kind of painting this scary picture of things happening in our city's schools. And to their extent, I will say Superintendent Joe Gothard acknowledged the situation and the broader picture, including a recent incident at West High School where a student was left hospitalized after being attacked. So I can really only imagine how kids at MMSD are feeling these days. It's really kind of a scary time for sure. And I think that at the end of the day, all we can do is really be there for each other, listen to these kids, support these teachers, support our schools. And I really want to note that there are resources available for those who need help. If you want to make a report or receive support, you can contact your local Child Protective Services agency. And then, of course, if there is immediate danger, you can always call 911. We will put a link in our show notes to some of these resources. So this is, again, it's a very serious story. There's a lot going on. I am very curious to see what this MPD and MMSD and other investigations are going to turn up. It's really just a matter of time with this one.
Yeah, well, we'll leave it at that. And if we find out anything more, we'll keep you updated. And in the meantime, we're going to carry on with this Friday News Roundup. That was a story in education, going to stay on education, but move to higher ed as there are layoffs happening at UW-Madison. So before that, let's take a quick break. We're back, and I am bringing forward a story from a piece in the Cap Times by their education reporter, Becky Jacobs. They received a stack of emails on UW-Madison's budget cuts, and the update includes dozens of layoffs currently in process. So the reporting says that University of Wisconsin-Madison is in the process of laying off 31 employees and leaving an additional 156 positions vacant. So folks are losing their jobs, and as academic staff leave, many of those positions are just not being replaced. What's going on? Basically, for UW-Madison, it's time to pay the piper and face the budget deficit made by the massive battle axe the federal government took to higher ed research universities like our own. We know that back in March of this year, UW-Madison administrators told each school, college, and division to prepare to cut their budgets by either 5 or 10%, and this is the outcome. We're seeing the results. And looking at the reported list of schools who are impacted by the layoffs within UW-Madison, it's truly UW-Madison-wide. It's from letters and science to the School of Business, the School of Engineering to the School of Nursing, ag to the law school. Like, it is really widespread. We definitely talked a lot about this in the spring when research funding at UW seemed so tenuous and everyone was throwing up their hands at like, oh my God, like this is massive. And now people are losing their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I hate to see all of this come to fruition. We've been talking about this for months, and like you said, it is time to pay the piper. And thinking about this story, I fear for the future of higher education, to put it bluntly, because this is truly just the beginning. It's interesting, the Cap Times, they talked to Barrett Elward, who is an engineer at UW-Madison's College of Engineering. He's also the co-president of the United Faculty and Academic Staff Union. We had him on the podcast not too long ago talking about, what these cuts would look like and how they're going to impact UW. And he really emphasized, in that show that this is going to impact students. Again, like at the end of the day, we're talking about higher education. We're talking about school. We're talking about students. This is going to impact this next generation of learners. And I am sad for them. And I am sad for the position that it is putting our universities in. I think that they're going to have to pivot to more private fundings, but, there's only so many mortgages in the world who can give millions of dollars to these institutions to help fill these holes, because the federal spending was a significant part of the school's budget.
Yeah, and of course that affects not just the school. When research is being cut back, that affects everybody. When fewer, highly trained people are being released into the workforce, that affects the business economy. I think that's why you've seen the business community in Wisconsin really stress the importance of the UW. And, there are ripple effects throughout the entire state when you choke off funding like this.
Totally. Federal funding, y'all, is around a quarter of UW-Madison's budget, as a reminder. So dozens of grants have been terminated by the federal government. The head of research at UW-Madison was quoted in Jacob's article saying that the university will be losing $112 million a year on average. So in addition to layoffs and leaving roles empty, each school and college is looking at their own unique situation and taking moves to fill the gaps, including cutting benefits for grad students and teaching assistant or TA-ships. Some looking at cutting TA-ships entirely, cutting hours and student services, cutting administrative support and outreach. It's across the board. In terms of layoffs, I will say UW-Madison's finance and administration website has a Q&A on this 2026 budget update, and in it, it recommends to university leaders that layoffs are to be a, quote, last resort. So I guess that's where they're at. We're at last resort levels here. Haley, you mentioned the United Faculty and Academic Staff Union. They are pushing for furloughs over layoffs. And the university said basically that furloughs are useful in short-term budgetary issues. And this looks like it's going to be an ongoing situation. So they're not keen to step back from doing layoffs. And I do think that this might really impact attracting top students and faculty here. It's not a fun time for anyone. And it's being described as a manufactured crisis from the federal government. And now the university has to operate in a space of austerity.
Well, I keep going back to, what Rob said earlier about these ripple effects. And I think I've said this before on the podcast, but, in Madison, so much of our local economy is driven by the school. It's driven by UW. It's driven by the state. It's driven by the city. And now, those are three major employers who are facing these major budgetary issues. And we're seeing this now play out at UW in the form of layoffs and in the form of hiring freezes. And so it's not even just attracting top students and faculty to UW. It's about people who live here not being able to keep living here, or the people who are coming to live here not being able to find those high quality jobs that we've been touting for years and years and years. I mean, it's all of those three places I've just named have always been reliable employers for Madisonians. And now it's just such a tenuous situation. And especially, when we're talking about housing crises, we're talking about people needing food stamps, we're talking about people not being able to afford their bills. And now the job situation is just getting harder and harder. It's not It's not good. This is not good for Madison as a whole. Sorry to be such a downer today, guys. It's just there's no way around it. It sucks.
You don't have to apologize. And I think, frankly, the macro picture here is that layoffs are coming across the board in so many different scenarios. And, 30,000 Amazon employees are being laid off. And I saw a list of 12 major companies in the US doing thousands of layoffs. So really, this is something that everyone's looking around we are in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, locally too, Fetch Madison, I haven't seen it in the news that much, but they've laid off a bunch of employees recently. It's just that's a private company that is valued at a lot of money, but they're tightening the belt.
In terms of other things to consider, apparently enrollment, there are a lot of students that want to go to UW. So it's not like the numbers of people applying to the schools are dipping. But I will say international student enrollment is down 7%, which is very bad for the budget because international students pay more. In fact, the university was waiting to find out how many international students they got so they could know okay, well, how much money do we have? And that was actually a major factor in some of these cuts. So why is that? Why is international students enrollment down? It's around visas being delayed and uncertainty having an impact. Should we come to this university if we show up and we could possibly be removed? That's a story that we've covered on the pod. So there's a lot happening at UW-Madison, as well as other universities across the U.S. But that's the news here. And we've got more news to get to. And it's also not terribly positive. But you're here because you want to know what's going on, and we've got the story. So while we're talking about jobs going away at UW, unfortunately, the ongoing federal government shutdown is bringing insecurity to our state's largest food assistance program. And we're going to talk about that. That's up next. But first, a quick break. Okay, we're back with more sunshine. A quite sad story that has us all alarmed, and food pantries coming together. Rob, what is happening via the federal government shutdown?
The hits just keep on coming, don't they? I would say there's a glimmer of hope, relatively speaking, in my story, because at least there's stuff that people can do to help in this situation. But I'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, you're right. Madison food pantries are bracing for the loss of federal food assistance benefits known as SNAP. They're set to run out November 1st, which is tomorrow, as the federal government shutdown enters its second month. Now, while these funds are administered at the state, local, and federal level, these are federal dollars. As many as 700,000 Wisconsinites, including 65,000 in Dane County alone, received these benefits. And Wisconsin this week joined 24 other states in filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration because the USDA has a contingency fund of $5 billion that they could be using towards these benefits, but they've decided not to. So that's in court right now. But even if the states do win in court, there would be a delay in getting that money actually out to people. And so this is a lot of worry and uncertainty, and it's coming at a time when food pantries were already experiencing and expecting increased demand with the holiday coming up. Julie Bennett, the CEO of St. Vincent de Paul in Madison, said their pantry has already received a 40% increase in traffic, and a lot of that is from first-time visitors. And I think we talked about the Goodman Thanksgiving Basket Drive. They give out 4,000 basically Thanksgiving dinners to 4,000 families in Dane County. Last year, it took 24 hours for people to sign up for those baskets. This year, it took 5 hours. So that's the level of demand you've got out there. And also, you're seeing other federal programs that help people getting scaled back or eliminated, and prices at the grocery store are going up. So it's sort of this perfect storm of things that are really hitting low-income people at the worst time. I mean, this week I linked to a Cap Times article in the Madison Minutes newsletter that compared food prices at local grocery stores. And it was by far the most clicked thing I've ever put in the newsletter. I mean, people are very concerned about grocery store prices right now. And what could be annoyance to those of us who are lucky enough to make ends meet, it can be just devastating to our neighbors. And of course, this keeps going. Like we said with the UW story, there are ripple effects. I mean, that's revenue that's not going to local grocery stores. If people are going to food pantries rather than spending those SNAP benefit dollars to buy groceries. So, and that means probably everybody's going to be paying even more on grocery prices. So, what do you guys think about all this sunshine I'm bringing to the bringing to the podcast?
It's terrible, and I'm just so grateful that we have continued to talk about it, and that I'm seeing a lot of people talk about it and a lot of media cover it. And I think sometimes I'm watching national news and I'm thinking, why aren't you talking about SNAP benefits more? Like, you're talking about this East Wing being built at the White House, it'd be some palace, but this is going to impact millions of people and tens of thousands of people in Dane County. And so it is not pretty. And at least, there's something to be said about coming together and bracing for it together.
I really did not even consider the ripple effects to the grocery stores that you brought up, Rob. Like, truly, SNAP dollars, that's still money that the grocery stores are making. And that is a business that runs on super, super low margins.
Absolutely.
And so, like you said, we're probably going to see this reflected in the cost of our groceries now going up. And things just keep getting better, don't they?
I did see an article suggesting that this might be the thing that finally brings Congress to the table to negotiate and end the shutdown, because SNAP benefits affect lots of people all over the country in the bluest blue areas and the reddest red areas. So this might be the thing that finally gets a resolution to the shutdown, but I guess we'll see. I saw the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, which manages the food share program in Wisconsin, recommended that if you're a SNAP recipient, you should stock up on food like today, basically before Saturday.
Oh, geez.
The thing is, though, the benefits you have on your cards won't expire, so you can use them in November if you already have them, but you're not going to get any new benefits until the shutdown is over, or if they do release those contingency funds I talked about. For everybody else, obviously, this is a great time to donate food or cash to your local food pantry. There are lots of food drives going on all around town. As I said, the Goodman Center is collecting donations for its Thanksgiving basket drive. Food pantries everywhere really need our help. I did see something that said it's better to donate cash because the people who run those food pantries are really the experts when it comes to looking at their pantries and seeing what they need and going out and buying it. I mean, they'll stretch those dollars better than you or I can. Another good idea, I think, is just to make a recurring monthly donation rather than like a one-time donation for the holidays, because the need is obviously not going to go away, even if the shutdown does end. And this is also like a great time to volunteer at your local food pantry. I've seen all kinds of ways that people and businesses are kind of stepping up. I saw Just Veggies, this vegan restaurant, is offering free kids meals starting Saturday for as long as the shutdown lasts. I saw I'm Bored, the board game company, is having a food drive on Saturday where you can donate money and play games with the staff there. I saw Ancora has a special drink deal where they're giving $3 from every cup of, I think it's pumpkin maple cold brew, I think, so everybody's trying to find ways to help out. So, like I said at the beginning, it's a sad story, but there are lots of places and ways out there where you can make a difference.
That's such a silver lining to this whole thing, because I'm feeling very devastated by this week's news, if you guys can't tell. But seeing and hearing all of that, the community rallying together is really heartening. And there are things that we can do. I think the moral of this story is that it's really easy to get overwhelmed by the state of the world, the state of our state, the state of our city. But there are ways that we can make a difference. And it doesn't have to be massive. It can be small, just like that. So thanks for bringing that, Rob.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I grew up using food stamps. Our family went to the grocery line and that's what was used, as those cards. And the idea that there are a number of people who are going to show up to the store and they might not have heard the news, and it can be an embarrassing thing. And I think that if we're talking about the silver lining, I know that you out there listening, you guys say, how can we help? This is such an immediate impact that you can have and help in just the most human way to help families. And to bring it full circle, we were talking about schools at the beginning of the conversation, kids, especially we need our kids in MMSD to be ready to learn in all of this and like have some sort of stability. So do what you can. And I know that y'all out there will, because we've got a great city, and we're going to pivot to some more positivity, which is our member shout outs. We've got some neighbor shout outs to get to. It's time for good news. Each week on the show and in our newsletter, our CityCast Madison neighbors get to, and that might be you, the chance to shine some light on people, places, and orgs in our community who are doing great work. And we've got one shout out to share this week. Haley, how about you share that?
Yeah, so this week's shout out comes from Jane H. She said, quote, I would like to shout out one of my favorite stores, the Electric Needle, specifically the staff member Kendra, who is extremely passionate about sewing and sharing her skills with the community. Jane says she hosts a queer sewing club at a church in the Atwood neighborhood where you bring whatever project you're working on and you can ask her or other people who attend to help. And Jane said that she is even more in love with sewing because of this wonderful store and their staff. So that makes me so happy. Shout out to Kendra. Shout out to the Electric Needle. I love this shout out, and I love learning something new because when I first saw this shout out come in, I don't know about you guys, but like I have driven past on the highway, driven past the Electric Needle multiple times. And in my mind, it was always a record store. Like, doesn't it sound like the name of kind of like a badass record store? Electric Needle, drop the needle on the...
Yeah, or a tattoo shop.
I thought it was a tattoo shop. Yeah, exactly.
That too. Yeah. Turns out it's something so much cooler, sewing store. I love that. That's badass.
That's what we love about these neighborhood shout outs is like people are bringing stuff to the community that we don't know about, that we can't shout out. And like, this is a cool thing in Madison. You ought to know about it.
And that our fiber arts community is strong, man. So thank you for that shout out, Jane. And if you out there listening want to give your own shout out, you can. All you have to do is become a CityCast Madison neighbor. In addition to giving shout outs, there are other perks. It's the best way to support our team and the work we do here at CityCast Madison, which feels good. I know people feel good about supporting us. So thank you, all of our neighbors. And if you want to join, head to membership.citycast.fm to learn more. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. All right, we're going to end this Friday News Roundup on some fun. And obviously, it's Halloween today. And I want to ask, are you dressing up? And have you considered any local ideas? Because, we saw witches on the Yahara last weekend, which seems like a great outfit. You could be the new polar bear at the Henry Vallis Zoo, or maybe a BRT accordion bus. What are y'all thinking about? Do you have plans?
I love this idea. My plan was to do a little dress up with boyfriend where we are the Louvre robbers, very low impact.
Brilliant.
Yes, dressing in all black. I think I've got a toy tiara somewhere, and I want him to be have you guys seen the story of the dapper investigator who was not actually an investigator? He was just a well-dressed man who happened to be on the scene. I want him to be that, and I want to be the Louvre robber and wear construction gear and all these jewels and stuff. But I also love the idea of Madison-based costumes. I'm not super creative, so I looked to the internet to find some Madison-based costumes, and one of my favorite ones was the Lake Mendota, Lake Monona duo, where literally you and a friend just dress in blue and you're the lakes. Because what's better than our lakes? And what's better than wearing a costume built off of something that you probably already have in your closet? I'm wearing a blue sweater right now.
Respect.
So you meet somebody and they stand between you and they go as the isthmus? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So it's like a 3-person outfit.
True. And hey, if you've got more friends, Madison's got more lakes. So
that's true.
Just a squad of blue.
Wingra, Kaganza, everybody. Yeah.
And then everyone else in Skims. Skin colored outfit. What about you, Rob?
I think my dressing up days are behind me. I do like the idea of the BRT accordion bus as a couple's costume, sort of like, those 2-person horse costumes you used to see.
Yes.
Somebody in the front, somebody in the back, and just kind of shuffle down the street. But you can't, even though you're in the costume, you cannot use those BRT lanes. I just want to be clear. Those are for actual buses only.
Boo.
Yeah. Don't stand in them for too long if you're trying to get a picture. I'll say the first costume that came to mind for me was someone who's not necessarily Madison, but from Wisconsin, Annie Hall, a fictional character, because she's quoted as a naive singer from Wisconsin in that movie. And there's actually a moment where they go and visit Annie Hall's family in Chippewa Falls. So
Wow.
Obviously, Diane Keaton, R.I.P., one of the best to ever do it. And so that's kind of a local outfit. Madison Magazine did a good write-up about local outfits. And on there, one that caught my eye was Joni Mitchell on Lake Mendota. She apparently has her 1976 album, Hejira, is like her on Lake Mendota ice skating. And I'm like, I did not know. And I love Joni Mitchell, and that seems like a classy, probably easy outfit. So that's what I'm thinking about.
I think that's an iconic one. And I'm honestly kind of surprised that I don't see more of that. It's like, get a big scarf, carry around some ice skates. You're good to go. She's got like a beret on.
Yeah, exactly. Very Joni.
Maybe I'll go as Elvis in that fight he had on the east side. Yeah, fighting some teenager. Yeah.
That would be
some
great.
punk.
Okay, well, we're going to skate away on this Friday News Roundup, and I hope everyone has a safe Halloween and have plenty of fun. And to y'all, thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. Haley Sperling, appreciate you.
Of course. Thanks, Bianca.
And Rob Thomas, thanks so much.
Happy Halloween.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos with help this week from PJ Shahamat. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Additional music this week by the Madison Opera and Elvis Schoenberg's Orchestra from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who cares about our schools? Alrighty, see you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city. Until then, thanks for listening, and if you participate, happy Halloween!